All right, today we're going to dive into a world where criminal ambition and, well, basic common sense just don't mix. We're not talking about your slick mastermind types here. Oh no. We're talking about criminals whose plans were so unbelievably bad, you're just left scratching your head and wondering, what were they thinking?
So really, what does happen when somebody decides to break the law but, I don't know, leaves their brain at home? Well, you get stories that are way less crime thriller and a whole lot more slapstick comedy. Some psychologists might point to something like the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's where a person is so incompetent they literally can't see their own incompetence. Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the planners, and I use that term loosely. These are the folks whose criminal careers were pretty much dead on arrival, all thanks to some, let's just say, major flaws in their strategy. So let me introduce you to Daniel Glenn. He's a 40-year-old thief who, really believed in doing his homework. He wanted to do a little bit of, let's call it, market research before his big heist. Some due diligence, a little feasibility study. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, his big master plan was pretty simple. Step 1, call the exact store you're planning to rob. Step 2, ask the person who picks up the phone exactly how much money is in the cash register. I mean, you got to know if the score is worth the effort, right? And step 3, well, step 3 ended up being get arrested because, surprise, the store owner called the cops while he was just hanging around outside.
Yeah, the store owner, completely baffled as you can imagine, just hung up and dialed the police. And when they showed up, they found Daniel still circling the store, probably wondering why his genius plan wasn't going off without a hitch. Needless to say, he was arrested right there on the spot.
All right, next up we've got Ruben Zarate, an 18-year-old from Chicago. Back in 2008, he tries to rob a car repair shop, but he hits a little snag. A small logistical problem, if you will. A locked safe.
So Ruben storms in, demands all the money, and finds out that most of the cash is, you guessed it, in the locked safe. The employees tell him, sorry, only the manager can open that, and of course, the manager isn't there. Now, most criminals would probably just call it a day and get out of there, but not Ruben. Oh no. His solution? A pivot to customer service. He literally gives the employees his own personal phone number.
I'm not kidding. He actually told them, hey, just call me when the manager gets here, so he could come back and finish the robbery. And you know what's hilarious? They actually did call him back. Well, right after they called the police, that is. The cops showed up first and nabbed him. I guess that's one way to network.
Okay, let's shift gears and look at a different flavor of failure. This next section is all about hubris. That deadly cocktail of arrogance and overconfidence that convinces people they are absolutely untouchable. And well, that's when they make some truly mind-boggling mistakes.
So first up in this category is a man named Christian Bala from Poland. Back in 2000, he committed a murder, and for a while, it looked like he got away with it completely. The case went totally cold, but Christian's ego, well, it just couldn't leave well enough alone.
So the case is cold for 3 years. Then, out of nowhere, Bala himself publishes a novel. It's called Amok. And wouldn't you know it, the book describes a murder with details that were so incredibly specific, things that only the real killer could possibly know. It was basically a confession disguised as fiction. Once the police read it, that cold case got real hot, real fast.
Next, let's talk about an unnamed woman in her 50s from California. She was a consumer, you see, a customer with a very serious complaint about the quality of something she'd just bought. And boy, was she determined to get some justice. Her process was certainly unique. So she buys some cocaine, and she decides, you know what, the quality here is just not up to my standards. So, like any reasonable, dissatisfied customer would do, she takes her complaint straight to the top. She marches right into the local police station and demands that they help her get a refund from her dealer.
And get this, she didn't just show up to file a complaint. Oh no, she brought the subpar cocaine with her as evidence. It's probably not going to shock you to learn that instead of a refund, she got a brand new pair of handcuffs. Okay, for our final section, we're really venturing into the deep end. This is the realm of pure, unadulterated naivete. We're talking about criminals whose grasp on reality is, let's just say it's creatively different.
First up, meet Michael Fuller. Michael strolls into his local Walmart to pick up a few things. But his payment method? Well, it was a little bit bigger than your standard $20 bill.
He tried to pay with a $1 million bill. Now, just in case anybody's wondering, the largest bill in circulation in the US is the $100 bill. The $1 million bill? Yeah, that's not a real thing.
So he's buying a microwave and a vacuum cleaner, right? The total comes to about $476. He hands over this fake $1 million bill and genuinely, truly expected the cashier to hand him back over $999,000 in change. As you can probably guess, Walmart's security and the local police had a slightly different transaction in mind for him.
But now for the grand finale. We've saved what might be the dumbest criminal of all time for last. And we can kick this story off with the actual opening line of the crime itself, a direct quote from his phone call to the very bank he was planning to rob.
This is Albert Bailey. Back in 2010, Albert decides he's going to rob a bank in Connecticut. But here's the thing about Albert. He also believed in common courtesy. You know, giving folks a little heads up.
So here's how his plan went down. First, he calls the bank to let them know he's coming to rob them. Then, just to make sure they knew he was for real, he sends his 16-year-old accomplice inside with a note confirming who he was. Then he just waltzes in, picks up the money they have waiting for him, and strolls right back outside and straight into the arms of a waiting police force. I guess politeness doesn't always pay, huh?
So, after that absolute whirlwind tour of criminal incompetence, what have you actually learned here? What are the big takeaways from these masterclasses in how not to commit a crime?
Well, it seems like we could put together a pretty simple failed criminal's handbook based on these stories, right? Lesson 1, probably not a great idea to call your victim ahead of time. Lesson 2, leaving your phone number is, great for making friends, not so great for a clean getaway. Lesson 3, if you somehow manage to pull off a crime, maybe, just maybe, don't write a book about it. And finally, a little pro tip, $1 million bills are not in fact real.
And all this kind of leaves us with one final thought. You always hear that there's a fine line between genius and stupidity, but after going through these cases, you really have to wonder if for some people, that part of the brain that's supposed to flag a bad idea is just not there. Maybe when you get to this level of dumb, there is no line at all. It's just a vast, wide open field.